Some people make arrogance look good. Arrogance can be magnetic when it's a show. The way Dwayne "The Rock" owned the ring, Tony Stark flashes genius confidence, or Han Solo's roguish grin. In others makes it look bad. There's a fine line between captivating confidence and grating hubris. One is a performance, an invitation for the audience to join in on the fun. The other is a declaration of superiority that demands submission. It's the difference between a character you root for and a villain you wait to see fall. And for me, Dr. Mike Israeltel has always fallen into the latter category. It wasn't just confidence, it was a pervasive sense of superiority that seemed to define his entire public identity. This is the story of how that identity became his undoing. It's a story about what happens when the foundation of a brand, an empire, is built not on solid ground, but on the fragile ego of one man who believed he was the smartest person in any room he entered. To understand the fall, you must first understand the rise. Dr. Michael Israeltel is the co-founder of Renaissance Periodization, or RP Strength, a coaching and content company that promised to bring a new level of scientific rigor to the world of bodybuilding and fitness. He holds a PhD in sport physiology from East Tennessee State University and has served as a professor at institutions like Lehman College and Temple University. These credentials were not just lines on a resume, they were the bedrock of his brand. The central promise of RP Strength was simple. Their methods were better because they were smarter, and at the heart of that claim was Dr. Mike himself. His public persona was meticulously crafted around the idea of unparalleled intellectual superiority. This wasn't subtext, it was the explicit message delivered to his audience time and time again. He has claimed on multiple occasions that he possesses a genius IQ and that he could become an expert at anything after 1 week of applying himself. When asked why he doesn't employ a coach for his own bodybuilding preparations, his answer was blunt.
I'm both on a raw IQ scale smarter than almost every coach, maybe every coach, and I know more about physiology, body responses, etc. than they do in most cases. And so if I don't trust you intellectually and I think I could do a better job doing what you do than you, it becomes a real big problem for me to follow your advice because I find elements of it that are either wrong or mysterious, and I ask for clarification, and the clarification is either wrong or wildly insufficient. And so that's a problem because you know it's really difficult to take advice from someone. You're like, I know he's wrong about a bunch of this stuff. And I have taken the advice much more directly of coaches before and been really fucked over. So that leaves a bad taste in the mouth.
He has even mused on the dark side of having a high IQ, describing the frustration of dealing with less intelligent people. To explain a concept to them, he claimed, would require hours of painstaking childlike discussion, where I retaught you multiple subjects you seemingly never learned. This relentless self-aggrandizement served a distinct commercial purpose. It created a dynamic where any disagreement with his methods was framed not as a difference of opinion, but as an intellectual failing on the part of the critic. As observers have noted, this perceived authority was a tool used to end discussion and criticism, bully those who disagree with him, and sell shit. His brand's core value proposition was not merely that his advice was scientific, but that it was superior because he, Dr. Mike Israeltel, was intellectually superior. This strategy was incredibly effective, but it was also incredibly risky. By making his own genius the central pillar of his enterprise, he created a high-stakes scenario. Any successful challenge to his intellectual credibility would not just be an academic embarrassment, it would be an existential threat to his entire brand. The foundation was set and the house of cards was built. All it needed was a strong gust of wind. That gust of wind would come. The target of his arrogance was not just any bodybuilder, but an icon, Mike Mentzer. Mike Mentzer was more than a top-tier professional bodybuilder from the sport's golden era. He was a philosopher king, the chief evangelist of a training ideology known as heavy-duty or high-intensity training, HIT. His philosophy, which prioritized brutal, all-out effort in a small number of sets, stood in stark contrast to the high-volume approaches favored by contemporaries like Arnold Schwarzenegger. To his followers, Mentzer was a renegade thinker, a man who brought logic and reason to a sport of brute force. He was and remains a revered figure. It was this legacy that Dr. Mike Israeltel chose to challenge, not with a nuanced critique, but with a breathtakingly arrogant dismissal.
And who am I compared to Mike Mentzer? Well, real talk, and this is me just being snooty, so I don't really mean all this. I mean, in a factual sense, but I don't want to come off like a dick. I'm bigger and stronger than Mike Mentzer. That's it. Yeah. So all of a sudden, that changes the game. I'm more educated than Mike Mentzer. I know more things than Mike Mentzer.
The backlash from the bodybuilding community was instantaneous and ferocious. He was widely condemned as delusional and a joke.
You're telling me, Mike, that you think you're bigger and stronger than Mike Mentzer? A Mr. Olympia professional bodybuilder. You're bigger and better than him. Really?
While some online commentators debated the literal truth of his claims, arguing that modern nutrition and pharmacology might make a current athlete technically bigger or stronger than one from a past era, the vast majority saw the statement for what it was, an act of profound disrespect and absurd arrogance. He had attacked a beloved icon of the sport, and in doing so, he had awakened a sleeping giant. That giant was Dorian Yates. Six-time Mr. Olympia Dorian Yates was not just a friend and admirer of Mike Mentzer. He was the living embodiment of Mentzer's philosophy taken to its absolute zenith. Yates adopted the principles of high-intensity training and used them to usher in the mass monster era, dominating the sport throughout the 1990s with a physique that redefined the limits of muscularity. Yates himself credits Mentzer as a primary influence, stating, "Mike was the most influential for me, going against the grain, asking the why, challenging the normal way of thinking and training." When Israeltel's comments surfaced, Yates' response was swift and surgical.
Okay, I guess I'm Mike's friend. He's not here, so Dr. Mike, first of all, I hope that you're being like tongue-in-cheek, kind of humorous. Otherwise, I fear either for your eyesight or your mental health. Because obviously your physique's nowhere near Mike Mentzer, even with all the PEDs that you're taking, that you estimate will take 10 years off your life. Well, maybe you need to ask yourself whether it's worth it, mate, because a bag of shit that gets bigger is just a bigger bag of shit. Still a bag of shit. You know what I mean, mate?
In a public statement, he referred to Israetel as a bag of ish, a blunt and dismissive insult that cut through the noise. The bodybuilding community lauded Yates for his directness, contrasting his no-nonsense approach with what they saw as Israetel's half-ironic, backhanded, cowardly way of speaking. This confrontation was far more than a simple war of words. It was a proxy battle between two fundamentally opposed bodybuilding ideologies. Israel's entire system at Renaissance periodization is built upon the meticulous management of high training volumes, the philosophical antithesis of the low-volume, high-intensity principles championed by Mentzer and Yates. By claiming to be more educated and to know more things than Mentzer, Israetel wasn't just insulting a man, he was attacking the intellectual validity of the entire HIT philosophy. Dorian Yates, as the most successful practitioner of that philosophy in history, was defending not only his friend's honor but his own life's work and legacy. In his hubris, Dr. Mike had picked a fight with an entire school of thought, embodied by a man universally respected for his quiet intensity and unwavering principles. It was a battle he could not win. The feud with Dorian Yates was a significant blow to Dr. Mike's reputation within the hardcore bodybuilding community, but it was the controversy that erupted in October 2025 that would shatter his credibility in the wider fitness world and call into question the very foundation of his doctor persona. The catalyst was a single YouTube video. Content creator Solomon Nelson, a law student with a reputation for sharp analysis, published an exhaustive review of Israeltel's publicly available PhD dissertation from East Tennessee State University. For years, critics had chafed at Israeltel's use of his doctorate as a shield against criticism. Nelson's video was the first to systematically dismantle that shield, arguing that the document itself was unworthy of the authority it granted him.
If you're going to ask an examiner to look past a mountain of technical and stylistic flaws, then the work needs to repay that generosity with substance. Mike's thesis doesn't. It wants the Stephen Hawking exception, but collapses the moment you ask whether it says anything new. When judged against the formal criteria, the verdict is inescapable. Mike's engagement with the literature is superficial and uncritical. This is to say nothing of how in several instances he misrepresents the literature he cites and uses those misrepresentations to manufacture a research gap. Mike fails to demonstrate a proper understanding of the principles, strengths, and limitations of his chosen methods. And most critically, Mike neither generates original knowledge nor makes a significant contribution to his field. At best, he just replicates already well-known findings.
The video became the smoking gun, providing concrete evidence for what many had long suspected: the emperor had no clothes. Nelson's critique went far beyond pointing out a few typos. It revealed a document riddled with fundamental errors, from the comical to the academically damning. The dissertation, titled "The Interrelationships of Fitness Characteristics in Division I Athletes," was exposed as a work of shocking amateurism for a doctoral level paper. The most egregious flaws were in the data itself. The paper presented statistical figures that were literally impossible.
This is a statistical absurdity. Standard deviation measures the spread of the data around the mean. A standard deviation this large, relative to the mean, is nonsensical in a biological context. For this to be true, given a normal distribution, it would mean that roughly 1/3 of the lowest performing athletes in Table 4.6 had a body mass either greater than 145.7 kilos or less than 2.1 kilos, the weight of a newborn.
This wasn't a rounding error. It was a complete failure of basic statistical analysis, the kind of mistake that should have been caught by an undergraduate, let alone a PhD candidate in his review committee. Beyond the faulty data, the dissertation failed the most fundamental test of a PhD. It made no meaningful, original contribution to its field. The ultimate conclusion of the paper was, in essence, that athletes who performed better in athletic tests tended to be more athletic. This tautological finding was derided online as a useless contribution to the scholarly world. To cap it all off, the document was rife with basic spelling and grammatical mistakes, inconsistent formatting, and copy-pasted sections, demonstrating a profound lack of care and professionalism. For a man who built his entire brand on being smarter than everyone else, the shoddy workmanship of his own doctoral thesis was a devastating revelation. The cover-up is worse than the crime. A person of genuine intellectual confidence might have responded to this expose with humility, perhaps admitting that their decade-old student work was flawed and that they had grown as a scholar since. Dr. Mike Israeltel chose a different path. What followed was a disastrous attempt at damage control that would escalate the scandal from a matter of academic incompetence to one of deliberate deception. First, Israetel and his associate, Dr. Milo Wolf, released a response video. In it, they didn't address the substance of the critique. Instead, they claimed that Solomon Nelson had analyzed the wrong draft of the dissertation.
We now know Solomon was looking at an accidentally uploaded incorrect rough draft. So I'll say this, I don't blame him for going hard on it, because he has every reasonable idea to think this was the final draft. It wasn't. We have the final draft now in the link here. And so most of his critiques are just non-starters because the final just doesn't have most of those problems.
And that an updated, correct final version existed. They then presented this supposedly final draft to the public, but the online fitness community, now fully engaged, began to scrutinize this new document. They quickly discovered that it too was filled with inconsistencies and errors. The situation took a dramatic turn when another YouTuber, Zerk Fitness, published a video that served as the smoking gun. Zerk presented evidence suggesting that the final draft provided by Israetel had been recently edited.
Well, it gets so much better, because Mike's team just tried to do damage control and somehow made everything 10 times more suspicious. I'm talking potential document tampering, I'm talking cover-ups, I'm talking about the kind of stupid mistakes you make when you're panicking and not thinking things through.
Implying an active attempt to cover up the original paper's flaws after Nelson's video was released. The wrong draft defense had completely collapsed. Israetel was now accused not just of producing a shoddy dissertation, but of lying about it and attempting to mislead his audience with a doctored document. His actions created a textbook example of the Streisand effect. The attempt to suppress the story only made it explode in popularity, drawing millions of new viewers to the controversy. Commentators were aghast, stating that instead of simply being a man and owning his mistake, he had doubled down on a lie, destroying what little credibility he had left. The house of cards was now in a free fall. The PhD scandal exposed a crack in the foundation of Dr. Mike's academic authority. Simultaneously, his career as a competitive bodybuilder was revealing a similar disconnect between his theoretical knowledge and his practical results. For a man who claimed to possess a superior scientific understanding boasting of muscle growth, his own physique and contest placings often failed to validate his methods. The smartest coach could not coach himself to the top. The online chatter about Israetel is filled with rumors, including the claim he once blamed a contest loss on a bad tan.
Just because you chose not to diet hard enough, because you chose not to get a proper tan.
The fact that this rumor exists and persists speaks volumes. It has become a meme, a piece of community folklore that caricatures a man whose public persona is so arrogant that such an excuse feels plausible to his critics. As Dr. Mike Israeltel's star was fading, a new one was rising with meteoric speed, representing a seismic shift in the culture of the fitness industry. That star was Sam Sulek. Sam Sulek became a phenomenon, attracting millions of followers with a style that was the polar opposite of Israetel's. Where Israetel was the distant, authoritative professor, Sulek was the relatable peer in the trenches. His philosophy, as discussed on a popular podcast with Chris Williamson, rejected the rigid prescriptive dogma of the science-based community that Israetel represented.
What do you make of the world of evidence-based lifting, science-based stuff at the moment?
I think there's people who are gimmicky about it. Some of it's a little silly. I don't think all of it is. So I would never, the point isn't exactly what they're doing, but a lot of the idea behind it, and it's kind of its own subculture, it's very like it's a weird elitism, because it's not like it's Chris Bumstead saying like this is and like their whole thing is this is right, you are wrong. And like that sucks. That's not cool. And that's not even true.
Sulek advocated for a balanced approach, one that values personal experience, individual biomechanics, and the simple joy of training just as much as clinical studies. He expressed deep skepticism toward one-size-fits-all methods, emphasizing that what works in a lab doesn't always translate perfectly to the individual. His content was praised for its raw authenticity. He wasn't selling a perfect system. He was sharing his personal journey, mistakes and all. The market was rejecting the top-down expert model in favor of a bottom-up authentic journey model. Israel's brand was built entirely on his status as an academic authority figure, delivering correct information from an ivory tower. The PhD scandal fatally wounded that model by exposing the expert's foundational credential as deeply flawed. This created a massive trust vacuum. Sam Sulek's transparent, unpolished approach was perfectly positioned to fill that void. The audience's preference shifted from tell me the science to show me your process, a cultural change that left Dr. Mike Israeltel's entire brand identity looking brittle, arrogant, and obsolete. The Mentzer feud and the PhD scandal were not isolated incidents. They were the most explosive moments in a long and consistent pattern of questionable judgment, emotional volatility, and off-putting behavior that defined Dr. Mike Israeltel's public persona. A crucial piece of context for his often aggressive online demeanor is his own candid discussion of his high-dose anabolic steroid use. In interviews, he has admitted to suffering from severe psychological side effects.
You mentioned from personal experience being aware of the dark side of anabolic use. What is that?
How long do you have? Anxiety like you would not believe. Every day that I'm on high doses, I wake up in the morning afraid of the rest of my day. Intrusive thoughts. I think about violence all the time.
While this doesn't excuse his behavior, it provides a lens through which to understand the volatility that often characterize his public interactions. The list of other controversies is long and varied. He has faced criticism for allegedly espousing beliefs in race science, a fringe and discredited field.
That your race or ethnic group is not the most intelligent of all of them, and maybe somewhere down the totem pole, much further than you had anticipated. You may also discover at the same time that there is a totem pole of racial intelligence, and you're gonna go, holy, what? You keep asking it, it's like, this is reality. You're like, oh my God, do I just stop trying? What is this? Holy crap, that's a really big deal. It could really bum you out. Now, inevitably, when you guys get in the comments and ask me questions about race and intelligence, here is my view in perpetuity until politics changes in at least the United States. This is my view as applied forward for the rest of this channel's lifetime until and unless politics really changes. Here it is, ready? I 100% acknowledge, because I'm literate, that race is truly a biological construct. It is deep, it pervades almost everything, and it has real world differences in ability that are complicated, they are overlapping in spectra, but they are nonetheless for sure real, and they affect every single thing about your life on the margins. If you ask me any more questions about that, I won't say anything because I'm not getting canceled over that shit. Because in our current political climate, if I fill in the blanks of what I mean, your boy's out. Fuck that. I'm not ready to, you know what I'm saying, shut down the YouTube yet. But, so what I'm saying is, yes, race is real. Yes, race differences exist. Yes, even in every single quality that you think is too politically incorrect to talk about, which is why I'm not going to talk about it.
In a particularly strange moment, he claimed to have had a religious experience with ChatGPT, further cementing his reputation for eccentric and out-of-touch statements. When viewed together, these elements form a uniquely unstable combination. His intellectual arrogance led him to make grandiose claims that invited intense scrutiny. His self-admitted emotional instability, likely exacerbated by performance-enhancing drugs, impaired his ability to respond to that scrutiny with reason, causing him to escalate conflicts. And his social immaturity, evidenced by his abrasive humor, left him with few allies outside his dedicated fan base when these controversies inevitably erupted. It was a self-destructive feedback loop, a perfect storm of personality traits that made a public downfall almost inevitable. Like, subscribe, and share. Tell me your thoughts of Dr. Mike Israeltel and his current controversies. Thanks for watching.